talk about raises and bonuses, expectations, and a new formula that we're going to try and use next year. And then after that, we'll do introduction of all those managers and staff here. And be thinking about it. What was it you want to have?
Well, everybody said their name and what their job is, but what we ought, in order to take advantage of the opportunity for staff and the board to get to know each other a little better, think about what are the 1 or 2 most pressing issues that are occupying your time, that represent the things that you're really focused on in your job. And it may be mundane or it may be something exciting, but that would be revealing more about what you do on a daily basis. So we'll segue to that, but Shannon, that's all yours.
Okay. This is the time that everybody will fall asleep, right? So it's right after lunch.
Didn't have enough carbs yet.
Oh, no, not enough carbs. Okay. And we're talking about salaries and finance, so everybody will try to stay awake for a little bit. Anyway, I did want to give, I handed out to everybody a document that is labeled Greater Peoria Mass Transit District's compensation plan for non-bargaining positions. So these are non-union positions. And I just want to say right up front that this is a working document. This is nothing that's set in stone, but it is ready for input from board members, from other employees, and maybe you have some better ideas than what I put down in there, and so we are willing to hear those ideas. But just to give everybody a little bit of a background as to how we developed this, back in 2017, so I know that was 5 years ago, and things changed a lot in 5 years. We did do a compensation study. It was performed by GovHR, and their purpose that they said that, well, it was the purpose we gave them, but why they were doing this compensation study was to establish internal equity or ranking among employees across departments and assure external equity and competitiveness by comparing GPMTD's compensation of employees against market data. So pretty standard for what you would get in a compensation study. They performed a three actions within the compensation study to develop what they gave us in the report afterwards. They did job evaluation and analysis and job classification system. They did a salary survey, and they proposed a classification and compensation plan. Okay, and so I'll elaborate on each one of those areas just a little bit, and then we can talk about the actual compensation plan that we have laid out so far. So the job evaluations that GovHR did when they came in is they took each one of our employee positions. They actually did do union positions as well. We're not really going to talk about those today because, again, the union contract states what the union employees will get paid. But just as a matter of comparison, we did go ahead and put them in the compensation study. But they took employees, and they had each employee within their job complete a questionnaire of their job. And then the consultant conducted an interview with each of those employees within their classification. Then the consultant assigned a numerical value to each one of those positions to produce an internal equity hierarchy. Okay, so each job description was evaluated, the employees were interviewed, the job descriptions were looked at, each job was ranked with a value. And after that, 9 factors were used for the evaluation of the job classifications. They took into account education, what was required for preparing and training, work experience, the years of experience that was needed to perform the job, the decision-making power of the position in independent judgment, the responsibility for policy development, planning, contact with others, work of others, in other words, do they supervise other people, working conditions, and then use of technology or specialized equipment. After doing all that job evaluation, the result was a classification table that you see as proposed in this compensation plan. So as they ranked the jobs here, they put them in a pay grade. The titles fell within those pay grades, and that's how they ranked those based on job descriptions and the score that they gave them. The second part of it was a salary survey that they did. The consultant solicited salary data from all fixed route bus transit providers in the state of Illinois, which was a total of 17 agencies. Out of the 17 agencies, 12 of them responded to the survey questions, and the salary data was adjusted to account for the cost of living variances in the different parts of the state, because obviously CTA is not going to be comparable to us here in the Peoria area, so adjustments were made for the different agencies that responded, and then they came up with the salary survey resulted in the recommended pay ranges that, again, you see on the table in that compensation plan. However, these are not the pay ranges that we received in 2017. These have been currently adjusted for inflation and cost of living for 2022. And so as a result of those two things, GovHR came up with a proposed classification and compensation plan. In the recommendation, it resulted in what you see as the proposed compensation plan before you. GovHR recommended that we use an open range merit plan. This type of a plan has 3 parts to it. It has salary ranges with minimums and maximums, which you see. It allows employees to advance through the compensation range based on annual satisfactory performance evaluations. And it allows maximum flexibility for the district relative to recruitment, as employees can be hired with a range dependent on experience. GovHR's recommendation plan gave guidance on implementing the plan for current employees as they stood there in 2017, as well as future administration of both the compensation and classification plan. We do recognize the fact that it's important that we do need to periodically review and survey salary data. We can't just take what they gave us in 2017. And we have to review periodically job descriptions as well as the classifications and do our due diligence to execute those reviews annually would be the goal. Another thing of note is that there were 3 jobs added since this study was done. One would be procurement. I believe procurement, if I am correct, at 2017 was in the finance department and being done then. And so that's been broken out to be a separate piece or department, and Jamie does that currently. And we added a payroll administrator, and we also added an assistant director of operations. So those 3 have been added into the compensation grades, as you see it there on the compensation plan. And I just want to kind of highlight a couple things in the compensation plan. I put in there that it's designed to attract, motivate, and retain talented employees who drive the company's success. That's why we want this in place, so that we have a standard that we use in order to attract and retain the best talent possible. Also down there at the bottom, I just want to read those last couple sentences. In alignment with our company culture, we will strive to communicate openly about the goals of the company and the design of the compensation plan. The compensation process is intended to be fair and simple so that all employees and managers understand the goals and the outcomes of the process. GPMTD will work hard to administer the compensation program in a manner that is consistent, fair, equitable, competitive, transparent, and free of discrimination. And so we really want to maybe forget everything and how everything's been done in the past and set this as a precedent now, so that this is what we're going to use moving forward, so that we have a standard and everybody knows where they stand and how that's going to be executed and administered from this point out. So you can see there the job titles, where you would fall within the pay grades. I understand that some of the job titles here are different than maybe what we have today. And that is because I wanted to stick with what the original compensation plan, this is what they gave us as job titles based on the job duties at that time. Most of those duties for us in those positions have remained the same. They really haven't changed, except for the few that might have broken out and are doing different, or those that have been added. So if anybody has questions on that, we can maybe talk about that. But otherwise, I assume based on your title that you have currently, you can kind of see where you fall within this range and go from there. The second page talks about new hires and the process we would like to go through when we hire somebody new. In general, new hires will start at the base or the bottom, the minimum of the pay grade. However, there are allowances made for those people that you might hire with higher experience, and allows management that flexibility to be able to determine a pay range within the pay grade. The next section talks about annual salary increases for current employees. The goal is to have annual increases be determined based on your performance review. I did give you all a current template that we use currently for our performance reviews. The performance reviews are done by each manager of the employee, and then that's gone over with the employee, and they are given a score. And then what we would propose to do is that based on those performance scores, you would then get a certain percentage of an increase. I just want to point out that I put down there that this is an example of a performance score scale, because all this is dependent on finance and the availability of funds being available to give raises and bonuses. So as the district determines the budget for salaries, then the performance scale score would then be determined on annual percentages, if that makes sense. On bonuses, we propose that bonuses be based solely on goals that are met. So each year, at least what we've done in the past, I know at least Doug has for me, given me goals that I need to meet for the next year. So what we would do on an annual performance evaluation is look back at last year, what were your goals? What goals were set for you to meet? And based on you meeting those goals would be your bonus would be determined on how well or how many you met those goals. And so again, that's an example. I'm not stating that if you meet 25% of your goals, you're going to get a 1% bonus. I'm just giving that as an example that could be what the scale would be. Again, that'll all be determined based on the district's budget that's set up for us. So that's the basis. There's probably maybe lots of questions or issues, but anyway. Kim?
Okay. My issue with the bonus is that you're saying goals met. To me, your goals met are part of your true evaluation. For me to give someone a bonus, once again, I'm talking from experience, bolster, you have to go above and beyond your actual requirements. Like I'm going to give you what I want to see you, my expectation of you. So for me to give you more money than just your annual salary increase, I need for that bonus for you to have gone above and beyond your regular goals.
Sure.
Okay.
Do you think that would be met on then something that the manager would bring up as, oh, by the way, you didn't have to do that this year, but you did, I noticed you did this, or would it, I wonder how that would be determined, I guess, is the.
For me as a business manager, for me to think in terms of a bonus outside of what your salary increase, would not be an ordinary thing that you would even include as part of this document. Because for you to get a bonus over and above what we're already giving you, because to me, what you said in this bonus is what you should have done in your job, okay? And so I have given you your percentage of increase because of you meeting those goals that were set. An example I can think about is that, I want to pick on Emily, but say Emily is doing all the regular stuff that she's always done, but she comes up, because she's marketing, she comes up with a really, really great new creative idea that's going to bring in revenue or something like that. So in that essence, I would consider a bonus. But if I have said for her, I need you to come up with maybe 3 new things, and she comes up with 5, well, then I'm thinking in terms of a bonus, but not. So I wouldn't include this in it at all, because I would leave that up to the discretion of their immediate supervisor plus the general manager to see if that warranted over and above what that base salary increase would be. Just my thought. And I still keep bringing back the thing that many of you, we have moving forward interaction with you. I need to be able to give some feedback in some form or fashion about that interaction that I've had with you. That's why I was mentioning 360, and I don't know if people do 360s anymore, but I need to have some, because I don't feel that I need to be a part of this, but I do need to be able to give my input in some form or fashion for the people that I work with directly. That's all I got.
Okay.
I would add that any part of goals, and I think I'm just reiterating what Patty said, those should be part of your regular performance evaluation, because if this, I know this is a sample, right? This isn't actually what you're using. Yeah, you need to include your goals in your regular evaluation, because that's what you will be, at least what I would see, be a measure on effectiveness for an annual review. And then the bonus is based on something above and beyond some special program you did that was outside of your goal. And sometimes those bonuses are, they may only be available during certain times because there's no opportunity. There's a lot of things that a lot of you guys are doing because you're building a new facility, which may, say, oh, there's bonus opportunities here, which may not be available at other times.
All right. Anybody else? All right.
I'd like to see something based on customer satisfaction, measure that, and how are the constituents and the people we serve being, how do they feel about the job we're doing? Just to get some direct feedback from people outside the organization.
Our external customers, feedback?
Right.
Mhm.
I don't know how measurable that is, but
I also think, maybe this lends itself to the 360 review, but maybe our internal customers as well. I have many internal customers that I serve. All the employees basically are my internal customers. So maybe feedback from them would be helpful to my supervisor in giving him a better idea as to performance that I have. That might be something to look at too.
Just, who is our assistant director of operations?
Shamrock.
Okay. And then who is the payroll administrator?
Marcia.
Okay.
The other thing I asked on the grading system is, have you built in growth? And it does seem kind of weird though that, or should I say, the titles based upon what people do today, as opposed to what we want them to do, because maybe some of these titles need to be, managers, and there's a director in the future, but what you do today does not, mean you're a director level person, or you're a manager level person, but you've got promotability. This doesn't show anything about promotability. So if I come to the organization, I know that I've got upward movement if I'm at a lower level, and or if we change, grow, make other things, there may be other people that I can add to my department if I need a department. So this is good, but I think it needs to be filled out a little bit more for future growth and development, because it's one of the biggest things. When I talk to anybody here, we don't have enough people, or we don't have the right people. We're always chasing more, quality of worker. So building that in, even what you have at your level, that helps it. That makes it better for you to go out and recruit other people within the organization. So I think it's just missing a little bit of that.
One last thing is, what are our job descriptions? Are they available someplace for us to read with these titles?
I can send them to you.
I would appreciate
Would
it.
everybody like copies of those?
We are currently reviewing job descriptions. Nick, Shannon, and I have reviewed them. And then we're going to sit down with each of the employees in the next couple of weeks to make sure what we have for a job description matches what they're currently doing. So it might be after that we give them to you.
That's fine. It's-
Sometime before next raise season, maybe.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Anything else? All right.
Thank you, Shannon.
Oh, okay, yep. So the next exercise. We're gonna start with you, Ken, since you're one of the more senior. Anyway, so, what did you want? How many years of service and what keeps you up? No, not to keep you
Yeah,
up.
I didn't realize until we came to this that not everyone on the staff and everyone on the board know each other, except maybe just in passing. So the thought was that you've already introduced who you are and what your job title is, but if you could each take a couple of minutes and just say, how long have you worked here? And what are the main issues that are important to you in your job? That may help the board understand what each of you are contributing to the organization. So, go for it.
Okay, once again, Ken Body, been here 10 years, Director of Operations. And this problem is not just within CityLink or GPMTD. This problem is nationwide, okay? So, actually getting employees who actually want to be a part of the system versus I just want to be here for a job, make a few bucks and go home. It's becoming more and more difficult because there's so many different opportunities out there for the time being. Eventually those opportunities are going to fade, and then people are going to be looking back, sort of wondering where they're at. So there is a problem getting a good, steady group of bus operators. And we're constantly having new classes. We're constantly pushing for more operators. We're constantly putting out information to gather more and more applications. But this process is not easy. And then I just got to say that right now we're at that point where the union feels that there's a certain controlling power there that they possess. And they do. They do have it there because they're responsible for taking care of their employees and make sure they get the best they can for each and every employee. We've got to get down to the basis of, I guess we would call it a little bit more give and take, so that everybody can get along and let's make this process work. Because my thing is, I'm here to serve the public. Been a public servant pretty much all my life. I don't like it when a bus sits and there's people out there wondering, how am I getting to work? Where's the bus at? Who's going to take care of it? they don't need to worry about that, especially at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. You're standing and waiting for a bus and it never comes because either the equipment failed or we just never had enough operators to do it to begin with. So those are the main problems right now. And like I said, it's not just Peoria, it's all over. I mean, even with different businesses, people are finding harder and harder to keep employees working instead of them working from home. So it's rough, but we are still making it work. So.
My name is Martha Howater. I've been with the district for 14 years. I came in the finance department, and basically from the finance department, we used to handle the customer service, front desk, board packets. Right now, I'm currently overseeing the customer service area. In the finance department, I actually work on new construction. So I'm overseeing or reconciling all the information that's coming in from our RCC regarding the construction process. I do different tasks as assigned, so it's always a different challenge. I oversee the money room, so when they're saying the equipment's failing, the equipment is failing. Customer service, the biggest complaints I have with that is our equipment is failing. Our pen machines do not work, so we're not able to issue tickets, which make our customers a little upset. Our vending machine, as Ken touched upon a while ago, is nearly 10, 11 years old. It's not something that we can upgrade. So whatever we're doing with the fare box system needs to be addressed. In the money room, as far as that, our fare box machines are failing, so our operators are bypassing the coin machines. So we're not getting accurate counts from our fare boxes as far as the money coming through. It actually has become manually now. So there's a lot of things going on. So I guess we're looking forward for the board to give us a direction and get us going on the right track. The other aspect of what I do is I actually handle the grants in reporting to the FTA. So I work with the FTA, reporting the funds that we do receive, building the grants based on the tips, based on the needs of the district, and then monitoring that and reporting that and keeping Christine updated on it. So I've touched about everything in, I think, at one time within the district. I've been involved with inventory audits. I've been involved with payroll. I've been involved with operations and doing different things like that, and a wide variety. So, I do.
My name's Shannon Williams, HR. I have actually been with CityLink for 9 years. I started in the finance department and then was able to move over into HR, and so I've been in the HR role now for 7 years. The important goals and priorities, I think, that the HR department sees, and ones that, they are personal for me in that I really want to fix those issues. And one is opening up some lines of communication between departments, between the union and the company, and just, wherever else there's communication lacking. Changing the culture, it's such a buzzword these days, but we don't really have a really great culture at CityLink. I'm not quite sure where all the problems lie, only what I hear, but most of that's in the form of complaining. And then serving our internal customers in a fair and balanced way, and that's been something that the union will say, you're HR, you need to be fair. Well, yes, but I also need to follow the policies. So there's a balance there that is difficult. So we have I feel like we've started to make some progress on opening up lines of communication, in that we have invited other union members to attend the labor management meetings rather than just the labor board. So we've had regular employees that come to the last one. We'll open it up again when we have future meetings, so that they can air whatever grievances they would like to talk about, or issues or problems. We are going to start in the maintenance department as well, having some meetings. We're going to break it down. We're going to start, and we're going to talk to our janitors first, and then we're going to start back at the top and start talking to the foremen. We'll talk to the mechanics. We'll talk to the utility workers, and try to break down some of those silos and get everybody on the same page so that everybody is working a little bit more cohesively. So we have some things in the works, and we'll move over probably to the operations side and maybe try to do the same. So those are my biggest important priorities and challenges.
Hi, my name is Steve Green. I'm the Director of Maintenance. I'm in charge of fleet maintenance and buildings and grounds. I've been heavily involved in the new construction process for the last year. I've been here at CityLink for over 7 years, the last 2 years in maintenance. My biggest priority right now is on the board there is reliability. Our buses have been breaking down too often or being returned to the garage for a driver reported problem. So we're exploring softwares for diagnostics. Not only does our lights or codes give us what might be the problem, it'll actually give the most likely route to the problem. It'll be more specific in how we can address the problem through. They took a bunch of different agencies and saw these codes and say, this is probably a problem. It's like communicating with the software. It'll tell us where we want to go. So that's what we're hoping to accomplish with exploring this new software.
Hello again. My name is Jason Culberson. I'm your Director of Safety and Training. I've been with CityLink for 2.5 years now. I started in trains in 2004, actually as a bus operator up in DeKalb, Illinois, and been down to Georgia and back up to Illinois. My biggest things that I do, anything to do with vehicle accidents, workplace-related injuries, driver incidents or passenger incidents on the bus, initial taking the customer complaints, calling back to customers with stuff that we can help them with, dealing with any type of safety or regulatory compliance, fire systems, alarm systems.
I'm sorry, guys. Sharon has a hard time hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You gotta speak up a little bit.
Okay, sorry, Sharon. Also response, is that better? Okay. Also, anything to do with employee training for our operators or maintenance or, any type of training needs. And then I'm also over the security for the facility and also down at the transit center.
I'm Marcy Bigger. I'm the payroll administrator. I handle the payroll every week and your payroll on a monthly basis. And I'm also working on learning how to do the grants to help back up Martha with the grants and everything. And then anything else Christine decides to assign to me, I try and help out where I can.
All right, my name is Christine Fan, district CFO. I work for the district for more than 15 years. I think the one thing most important to me is currently our financial is solid, and in past 15 years, I think currently it have a very good financial status. And I also want to appreciate this kind of opportunity to talk to each other and with the board and with our team member. I agree with that in the past, we do have a difficulty, communicate between the department. However, I see there's some kind of change, the culture change lately. People's waiting to talk to each other, not just focus on like their title. My major challenge right now is I have a hard time to keep the employee, a lot of turnover. I'm not sure it's nationwide or, just currently the people got hired. The lady who just hired one employee stay one day and just left. So that's kind of personnel issue. That's it.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shamara Robinson, Assistant Director of Operations. I have been with CityLink for a year. It will be a year on the 24th of August, so I'm very excited about that. Time is just moving so fast. Previously, I worked for the city of Peoria with Marcy, and I was there for 17 years. And so I'm just so happy to still be able to work in the community and help others. So it's very important to me, near and dear to my heart. As the Assistant Director of Operations, the things that I've been working on is building a connection with internal staff. And I've been able to do that through the operational touchpoint meetings that we've started, and we're just doing those once a month. So I'm working with a lot of union members, so it'd be like operations, operators, and then also supervisors, and just getting an idea and a feel of past practices with CityLink and maybe what we can do as change management to try to move forward. And then also customer satisfaction is another one. When I hear some of the things that happen, you know, it kind of breaks my heart a little bit because we just always want to strive to do our best. So I just try to work with the best person on the team so we can try to fix any wrongs that we have, and just trying to learn some of the past practices so that we can try to figure out a way to make things better and improve. And then creating service agreements. I've been working on that, and I work with Jamie quite a bit on those. So it's nice to see that there is a need for transportation in our community because they are calling us, and we are able to make those service agreements available. I'm working on one right now with Pekin Community High School, so I'm very excited about that, and that should start tomorrow. And then also OSF. Another thing is overseeing, this is another new hat for me, overseeing real estate. I'm working with Nick on renting the space out in the transit center for possibly a daycare.
Hello, Jeannie Arbogast. I handle procurement. I guess procurement, a lot of people get it confused with purchasing. I don't purchase things. I actually work with everybody here that becomes a project lead, and they are actually the purchasers. I just go and I support them, and I work with them to make sure that they're following the rules and regulations. For instance, we're going to need some buses, so I'm going to be working with Steve a lot from the beginning. You have your planning process. We know we need buses. How are we going to pay for it? So then I go out and I look and I try to do competitive grants. Low or no in the buses and bus facilities, and we're successful. But we have rebuild round 3. So we just kind of have to. I work with whoever, you know, like right now I'm working with Jason. We're going to be buying paratransit cameras for the paratransit vehicles. So, and Christine's got one that we're posting today. But I basically work with everybody else for their purchases, and I even when they're done with them, if there's contracts involved, I track those regularly. For instance, like our phones, next year in August, our contract's up. So in a couple months, I'm going to be going to management and asking them if, are we going to renew our option years, or are we going to plan on, you know, releasing it out? So you might have heard Shamron mention my name a couple times. It's because I have to get involved at basically every piece of the project, from the beginning, from the planning, from the, you know, execution, and even the follow-up at the end.
Hello, I'm Emily Watson, and I am the marketing coordinator. I spend a lot of time writing. I know that may not seem like it, but I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of all the press releases, media advisories, and all kinds of other writing that comes with doing marketing. But I also coordinate the media relations that we do. So that's sending out the press releases to the media, but also fielding calls when we have stories coming up and they want to interview someone on staff. I also handle the advertising, so that includes the paid advertising that we place, but also the bus advertising program. We currently have a contract with House Transit Advertising to sell our advertising, but I am coordinating a lot of things on the back end, especially with maintenance. I work really closely with maintenance to make sure vehicles are available to have advertising. In fact, today they were advertising some new signs, which is exciting. I also manage the website, making updates to that. I'm not the only person that does that, but I'm the main person that does the updating to the website. I manage our social media, And then I do community outreach. An example of that is I'm going to be going to ICC this Thursday to talk to students about riding the bus and the opportunities there are to ride the bus. We do have an agreement with ICC to purchase bus passes at a discount, so I want to be able to share that information with students so they know how to buy bus passes at a discount. And then we have a lot of other special events and other projects that come across the year. You know, we have our Jerome Lilly Day, Passenger Appreciation Day, Stop a Bus, and all kinds of other things that we do throughout the year. I would say some of the things that I have for goals is trying to overcome some of the hurdles that there are with trying to make bus service attractive when we do have an aging fleet that isn't look as attractive on the outside. And so trying to really push the benefits of riding public transit and, you know, letting people know that it's an option, because I don't think people always look to riding CityLink. They always just think that it's an afterthought. I'm also going to be working with Jason and probably some other internal staff to try to come up with a employee recognition morale boost type of campaign. I think that is something that Shannon kind of touched on, that we need to try to help change the culture and build up the morale of our employees. And so Jason has some ideas, and I also have some ideas, so we're going to try to brainstorm and come up with a way that we can really start recognizing our employees for the important work that they do. And then I would also say capitalizing on new technology and vehicles, staying informed on the new projects that are happening. You know, anything that we do that's going to improve the service that we provide, we want to push out. So that's getting new vehicles, that's getting new technology apps, all that kind of good stuff. So just trying to stay on top of those things and make sure we're sharing that information with people, or with passengers and the general public.
Hi, everybody. I'm Desiree Carlson. I have a long history of support, being a support person and customer service through the other part of my career. I've been here 9 years, and I've always worked with the board and the Justice Assistant, and I've had 2 other general managers as well. So I really enjoy that, and I don't know if you guys also know I'm the FOIA officer at work for Freedom of Information requests. And one thing I really believe in is that once you lose credibility, and you don't follow through, then it's really hard to get that back. So that's important to me. And I've really enjoyed the past month working on Patty's Wow event and working on this event today. I like to have multiple projects to do. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bill Wambacher. I'm the attorney for the Transit District. I've been practicing law 43 years. All 43 years I've done transit work. 38 years for the Greater Peoria Mass Transit District. I work with every department. I work with Desiree on her FOIA request. Probably the person I work with the least is probably the marketing department, because they don't have the kinds of legal issues that everybody else has, and the regulatory issues, yes. So that's kind of my history. I've been here a long time. I've seen lots of managers, assistant managers, and personnel come in and out of the district during that time period, and lots and lots of board members also. So I worked with lots of people over the years. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Chris Peters. I've been at CityLink for almost 2 years, on site 5 days a week. And my main responsibility and priority is just making sure that our systems, network, servers, computers are running smoothly and efficiently, so all the employees at CityLink can continue to work smoothly and efficiently. Also lately been picking out network hardware and whatnot for the new building to make sure we're equipped with, you know, proper network access points and all that good stuff. But like I said, just really making sure that everybody is able to continue to do their job as seamlessly as possible with the kind of servers and networks we have on site.
I mean, I'd like to add, Chris was really a great big help for this building and for this setup. We came and looked at it. He knew what needed to be done here. He was a great help. So I just wanted to give you a thumbs up for that.
Good job, Chris. Nick Stanifer, I've been with the district for almost 4 years. Technically our first transit employee. I got a lot going on with just about everybody in this room, honestly. I mean, Kenny and I are getting ready to do bus pads down for the COA changes. Whenever I want to spend money, Martha will tell us, you know, how much money you got and which grant it needs to be used in. Shannon and I are always doing something. We're redoing the job descriptions for the employees. So that's another project we're working on. And then, like she said earlier, we're going to start going through each part of all the departments and trying to break down silos and walls, so that's a lot of meetings coming up. Steve and I, you got a lot going on. I bet him and I bet it's 8 to 10 meetings a week just for our building project alone. You know, our biggest challenge him and I have is just keeping us operational while this thing gets built. We've lost half of our footprint outside, and it's a big deal when you got 50 buses floating around, plus, you know, everything else, you know, vendors and everything else coming in here. So in the beginning of our building project, it was hundreds of hours of design. Now it's hundreds of hours of planning, you know, what are we gonna buy and all this other stuff, and, you know, the plan for the next year and a half, so that consumes a lot of our time. You know, Jason's the same thing, you know, we have all these planning meetings coming up for just safety equipment to put in the new building, all the new systems, all the training he's gonna have to go through. I mean, we just did the training for the Phase A out back, the paint booth, and that's just a drop of what's gonna come in the new building. It's gonna be hundreds of hours of planning and learning all that stuff. Christine, I hopefully, you know, I don't get in trouble with Christine for spending too much money. Sharon and I, like she talked about earlier, we got a lot going on too. You know, we're trying to figure out what we're gonna do with the Maya space. You know, all these pilot projects we're gonna talk about in a little bit. Her and I spent countless hours just meeting with all those other vendors and just trying to learn and figure out what's the best fit for the district. Jamie, I mean, I'm involved in a lot of different procurements, so I spend a lot of time, you know, talking to her, and, you know, we plan and do all the procurements and planning and writing scopes and all that other stuff. So marketing, I oversee the marketing department, so I try to give her whatever it is she needs and all the information she needs to market whatever projects or events or anything. So I try to keep her as up to date as I possibly can. Desiree's the same way. Whenever she does events like this, I mean, she did a lot of this with other people, but if she ever needs anything, I try to support her the best I can.
He was here at 7 o'clock this morning with me.
Chris, I oversee the IT contract because he works for STL. So like he was saying earlier, all the different IT systems we're planning to put here, you know, I rely on him a lot for his expertise in a lot of this equipment, because he talks about like access points and all this other stuff. I'm like, cool, man, I don't know what, you tell me which one will work and then we'll figure it out, and that's great, you know. I'm also the DDE officer, the Title VI officer, and I do whatever he tells me to do, so. And I try to keep him as informed as I possibly can with all these projects that I just kind of rambled off, so. That's a lot of what I do. I'm kind of all over the place.
I'm really glad we did this in the order we did it. I'm not sure it was planned before I got here that way, but you've had the presentation that talked about compensation and bonuses and performance reviews. Now you get a sense of what all these people are busy doing and the hard work that goes into running a bus company and all the different disciplines that have to be managed, and what capable people you have to do it. So hopefully this gives the board members a little better perspective on who's on the staff and what they're up to and what are the most pressing things they're working on, and you'll certainly be able to follow up with people individually after today. Any other comments or questions about what we've just talked about? I'll ask a question of Shannon afterwards, but the other element, we've talked about two elements of strategic planning. One was technology and what your appetite is for becoming a leader as a green technology provider and to make good on when you say, you know, clean. I forget what's on the side of the electric bus. Clean air for. We care about clean air. So putting that to work and making that the touchstone for what you do. That's a difficult question because there are big implications for what technology you acquire, implications in terms of what it costs to buy the bus, implications of what it takes to build charging stations, implications about how you present, well, implications about how you provide spare parts and mechanics training. It's a whole different world when you're dealing with high voltage electric equipment. By the way, if you haven't done it yet, say this speaking as a former manager from Hartford, Connecticut, that had a $800,000 brand new electric bus burn up. If you have not brought the fire department over to look at your electric buses, have you done that?
Yes.
Because the New Haven Fire Department came to this burning bus and they had no idea how to put out a burning lithium ion battery, which apparently you can't do. So what was left was just molten slag. So if you made sure the fire department knows how to find out if the bus is energized and how to turn off the voltage and okay, that's good. But yes.
Before you go on, I'm going to be leaving. I've got somebody coming in from Galena, Illinois. I've done some things that I can't get done. The niece that I helped raise, but another asset, she dates a guy who worked at Joe Davies Transit there. He's a speaker. So we have other things to talk about. So thank you all.
Well, it was so good seeing you, and your fellow board members can tell you what you missed.
They will.
Sharon, thank you so much for your time today. So we talked about technology and how this board decides what kind of commitment you want to make in terms of being a leader in green technology in the Peoria area, and all the implications go with that. Second thing we talked about was financing, and the fact that you currently don't get very much of your revenue from passenger fares. Maybe you want to dispense with passenger fares altogether, but if you don't, you're looking at having to have new fare collection technology. Good news is there's a lot of it. There's a lot of new technology to be explored. Your staff has already done a really good job of sort of researching what the options are. But that's going to be a strategic planning question for the board. What direction do you want to go in? And how do you make fare, if you decide you want to continue collecting fares, are you satisfied if you only have 6 or 7% of your operating budget paid for with passenger fares and subsidizing the 95, 96 cents on the dollar, 93 cents on the dollar with public funds? Or are you looking to increase revenue and possibly by changing the fare structure? And how do you balance that with equity issues? How do you balance that with trying to make transit user-friendly if you have a very complicated fare structure? There's a big public relations marketing aspect to whenever you introduce new technology that the customer has to use. So that's a strategic planning issue that goes into your vision for the future. And the third thing we want to talk about today are some ideas to be innovative. One of the things that's remarkable about the vision statement that this transit agency adopted, I guess, 4 years ago, is that you very specifically called out being proactive leaders to promote innovation. That's words right out of your mission statement, that you want to be proactive and you want to be innovative. And you may decide in the course of the conversation that follows our meeting today whether you still want to do that. You really want to be proactive and you really want to be innovative, because if you do, then there are some ideas that you may want to entertain. There are a couple of them that the staff is going to do a presentation on that will give you food for thought. And then there are a couple other things I'll bring up afterwards. But why don't we, you ready? Who's going to talk about microtransit?
Want me to screw it up, Chris? What's it called?
Pass the baton.
Is everybody still awake? Hello? Okay, all right. Everybody still up? All right. We had a very good lunch, so. So at this point, what we're going to do is talk about, does microtransit play in Peoria, Illinois? I kind of went with like the little slogan that's
pretty well known if you're from Peoria, Desert Play in Peoria. It kind of goes back to the past, if you know the history. I do love history when it comes to Peoria. And it's always been that slogan, Desert Play in Peoria, because this has been known as a testing site years back, even from the early 1900s, because there would be different products that would come in Peoria and they would just see if it would work. Because if it played in Peoria, then it could play anywhere. So now our question is, does microtransit play in Peoria, Illinois? So in order to find that out, let's just define what microtransit's about. So it's about flexible transit, on-demand transit option in public transportation, and appointment-like paratransit. So when it comes to microtransit, in your mind, just kind of think about like Uber or Lyft, but this is on a public transit platform. So you'd be able to use an app in order to book a ride. That's one way of doing it. So how does microtransit work? So microtransit has similarities as fixed route passengers are asked to walk to meet a vehicle at a virtual bus stop. So basically they would have to walk about a quarter of a mile. That's usually how it's done. And then the microtransit would actually be in a zone area. So there are no schedules or route maps, and rides would cost the same as fixed route. So that in itself is pretty nice compared to like Uber or Lyft, because you're going to pay a whole lot more. But with microtransit, again, it will be in the zone. Trips must start and end within zones that are typically determined based on need. And passengers can book a trip using a smartphone application, website, or they are able to call. They can use a call center to let the transit agency know exactly where it is that they would like to go. And one other thing that I would like to touch on too is if an individual has mobility or disability challenges, then we are able to go door to door if we have microtransit for those individuals. So the Greater Peoria Mass Transit District, we did a microtransit study, and it was created October 2021. So if you haven't seen this book, we do have it available on our website. VIA and Muse Communities Design, they were in collaboration with us to create this study. And we worked with area stakeholders just to find out what they thought if microtransit would work in Peoria. What were their thoughts? So there were two goals for microtransit, and it was to assess the feasibility of the Greater Peoria Mass Transit District using microtransit to improve mobility. And we really try to connect with the underserved community just to find out what are the needs. Number two, a secondary objective was to improve transit access all around. So potential zones that we got out of working with Muse Community Design as well as VIA is to create zones. So if we look at the map, we have the northern Peoria area, and then also the citywide off-peak only, so that will run at different times. And then number three is the Farmington Road North Bartonville, so that would be serviced by the airport and then also the Peoria County Jail. And then the downtown Peoria area, which that's where our transit center is at, and then also the south side of Peoria. So with stakeholders, we had a microtransit study conclusion, and with the participation of virtual focus groups and listening sessions, we did find out quite a bit. Generally, they were receptive of the idea of having microtransit. They expressed the need for transit options outside of city boundaries as their highest priority. Because as we start talking with many of our stakeholders, their concern was for the south side of Peoria. They understood that, there's been a food desert there for quite a few years. Right now, I believe we have Chuck Brown. He is working on creating a new grocery store on Western, which was the former Aldi store. So soon they will have a grocery store, but they want options.
And when we start looking at the zone, they said, okay, yeah, we like the idea of being able to go to East Peoria to shop, but I want my tax dollars to also reflect if I were to shop in Peoria. So then we start listening to them a little bit more. And even though we designed zone 4, I believe, for the downtown area, we were thinking, okay, what we could do is possibly run a strip so that we would be able to go to the Hy-Vee or the Kroger, because the other problem is too, there was not a pharmacy. CVS closed maybe about a year or two ago. So a lot of people still need to get their prescriptions and they were concerned about that. So they wanted to go to Hy-Vee and also Kroger on Lake Street just so that they can get to the pharmacy as well. So the downtown zone received most support. So this just gives you an idea of what people thought when it came to having these zones. So it's about 85% that believe that the downtown East Peoria would be best. And that's when they voiced the concern, hey, we need to have a strip to be able to go on Lake Street or even Sterling so they can get to the Kroger. I think it's important that we find out what the 6 best soil blends for money trees are, because I think that, you know, that can definitely help all of our pockets. But the next steps to consider is securing funding, which we don't have for microtransit right now. I know Jamie, she's been doing a lot of searching for us just to see if we will have options in the future, and maybe we will. So the next thing is to understand that implementation cost is over $3 million per year. And we found this out because we were talking to some technology companies that deal with microtransit just to help us figure out what the next best step would be. Choose the preferred microtransit zone, and service design is necessary because even though we came up with about 4 different zones, every zone is going to cost, of course, money. Then we have to procure the necessary software, vehicles, operations, or what we could do is use a turnkey operation, just like we do with our paratransit service. There are different companies out there that are willing to help with turnkey operations. VIA is a large one. They've been working with us quite a bit just to, you know, kind of give us some ideas. And that's what they do. They work on microtransit in different areas of the United States for transit centers. We would have to go out for bid. That's another thing that we have to do. And we must consider that vehicles are hard to produce with supply chain issues. So that kind of goes back to the turnkey operation approach, because we know that if we want to do microtransit, we have to have the vehicles, but it's going to take time to make those vehicles. And then launch process and educate future passengers on how to book rides and use the service. So there would be another educational piece, and if we did a turnkey operation, then they would help us with that. So data produced from microtransit service. Ridership is very important to us, so we want to be able to collect that data. Customer satisfaction, the average passenger wait times, productivity of the service, average cost per ride, on-time performance at pickup and drop-off are the things that we will want to capture, just to find out also if microtransit plays in Peoria. What are your thoughts? Thank you.
I like the idea of the service, but are there any vehicles for funding? I know that there was one grant you were applying for, and the thinking that you said you could include microtransit in it. So is there anything else that is even close to?
It's hard to find competitive grants that would support this kind of a project. We tried the lower no last year, where we were going to do it all internally and manage it ourselves. And I did a debrief, and they basically said, this is great. Unfortunately, it doesn't kind of fit into this type of grant. And he even had a hard time giving me, different options. And he said a grant like this is going to be one that just will pop up out of the blue. It won't be like a regular one, like the 5359 that we always see, or the rebuild. We attempted to do for the purchase of transportation, like we do with Transdev, through the rebuild round 3. It's kind of a gray area whether or not purchase transportation was considered a capital expense. So I verified with IDOT and they said they didn't have an application. So we didn't include that. But yeah, it's going to be hard to find a competitive grant that kind of fits this type of service for us.
Keep trying.
And we'll look. And we have some vendors that are really, wanting to help us. And unfortunately, we can't partner directly, but if it's in a competitive world, if I write a grant saying we're going to partner with this person, and if they accept it, then we can do a partnership. But typically, it has to be a competitive purchase.
All right. Just a couple other things I just want to put out there for pilot projects that we worked on, but it was on my other PowerPoint. Was for Pekin ICC shuttle, because we've done a few shuttles throughout the year. So Pekin ICC shuttle, the SC2 Peoria production, as of July 2022, the total ridership is 780. Those numbers aren't broken up, so I just found that out on Friday. So I wonder if there's a way that we can get those broken up. So that might be a change in management type of thing I could work on. And then also total ridership from July 2021 to June 2022 is 7,294. So it looks like these shuttles are really working. But we do not have anything consistent as far as with dates, so we wouldn't be able to give you year over year for those pilot projects. And then one that we are very excited about, we're excited about all of them, but we're very excited about this because it started August 1st, is the Washington 5310 paratransit service. So just as of Friday, we do have 10 applications, and this is a 6-month pilot project, as you know. And this is with the Washington Township and the City of Washington. So hopefully I'll have some more data to share with you soon. But this just started just a couple weeks ago, so I'll be happy to report more information out as time goes along within the 6 months, and hopefully we'll be able to continue the service later.
I've done a lot of this without the microphone. Maybe I can come back. Part of the purpose of this presentation is to give you an example of an innovative project that, even if it doesn't have the money behind it today, it's to get a sense from the board that this is a direction you want staff to pursue. And you want this kind of a demonstration to be undertaken if they can make it happen. Not every board will say we want to be innovative and we want to do creative projects and we want to be proactive about things. Some will be perfectly content not to. But this is where you decide what your vision is. And if part of your vision is, darn it, you want the staff to be working on projects like that, then if you give them that encouragement, they've already done a lot of this work. And microtransit. There are by the way, other First Transit locations that have done microtransit projects. I don't know if you're in touch with them or not. The one I know is in Greenfield, Massachusetts. So Doug can put. All right, well, we can certainly put you in touch with other locations that have already done it, and you can learn from their experience. There's another thing that came up briefly this morning, and it was just kind of hidden on a slide, but it's another interesting idea that could be innovative. A lot of cities have bike sharing and scooter sharing. Usually the initiative for that is through the city, because the city gives a contract to a vendor, and the vendor gives the city some amount of revenue in exchange for the permission to be the exclusive provider of these bike sharing services. And so what they do is have a rack of bicycles that are locked You have a QR code on your smartphone that goes to an account that you've set up and put a credit card number with it so that you go and put your flash your QR code against the bike and it releases it. And now you have it for as long as you need it until you lock it back up. The system will then know how long you've had it. It charges you so much per half hour, and that goes charged to your account. Now, the theory is that this is kind of a nice idea. It's active transportation. It would be great on a college campus. But transit agencies have figured out that this is also a sort of a first mile, last mile solution. If there are people that, if you had a rack of these bikes at your downtown intermodal center, and instead of transferring off one bus and getting on another one, you get off the bus and take a bike. There's no reason, unless if the city's agreeable, why that can't be an initiative of the transit system. And say the transit system will contract with someone to be the provider, and we'll get some of the revenue that comes from it. Now you're going to have permission to do that. And that goes to the essence of the issue about being innovative and proactive, is there's a certain amount that you can do yourselves, that the transit agency can do all entirely on its own initiative. But the larger question is how you work with other agencies in the region. So if you said we want to sponsor a bike share program, but we're going to have to get permission from the city of Peoria to do it. We're going to have to make sure public safety agrees, the traffic and roads agree. You're going to have rules about where the bikes can go and where they can't go. And you can control that. They can have geofencing so that the bike will literally shut down when it gets to the edge. So you can't ride it off to California. Is that something that you have enough interest in to encourage staff to pursue it? Also begs the question, are those opportunities things that board members themselves, you may have relationships in municipal government that go beyond what the staff does, and are those relationships that you can help cultivate? There's some, when we talk about proactive and innovative, it goes very fundamentally to the vision of what is transit simply about moving people from A to B. People stand at the bus stop, you pick them up, you take them to where some other stop along that route, they get off, and you hope you do it in a safe, reliable, and affordable manner. And if you do that, does that fulfill your purpose? Or is transit an instrument of public policy? Are there other agencies that would want to partner with you to help carry out their missions? And I'll give you 3 or 4 examples. There are cities where whatever is the social service agency that deals with homelessness will say, we need to work with the transit system so that people who are homeless can be provided transportation to get to where they're going to spend the night, and hopefully not on the bus and not in the park. Another one would be how you deliver health care. We've learned a lot about in the pandemic about how access to health care is a major challenge in a lot of cities. So whoever is responsible for ensuring that health services are accessible to people throughout this community, are they working with you, or are you working with them to talk about how transit can be a resource to provide accessibility to healthcare? There are a lot of places where social service agencies will actually buy bus passes. Do you do that here? Yes, you do, or no, you don't?
Yes. We have.
So there are social service agencies that buy bus passes from you that they then distribute to clients. That's great. And that's a good example of a cooperative relationship between the transit system.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
I truly thought we gave those all away free. Do they actually buy some? Oh, yeah. Or buy them free? Okay, I was okay with free, but I just.
DHS, Children Family Services.
Okay.
Person, Sheriff's Department,
Okay.
in the courthouse.
All right. Thank you. I was just curious. I just thought we gave them.
We have a small budget for donations that comes out of my budget, and it is for agencies, but we only do up to $200 per service organization.
Oh, okay.
For the year. For the year, for the fiscal year.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Are there, employment centers that are underserved, where the community would say, if only there was better service from this neighborhood to that job site, that there'd be more opportunities for people to be employed? So there's an opportunity to talk about, because that doesn't have to be all at the transit systems initiative. You may have partners that are willing to work together to help finance at least a demonstration of whether that shuttle will in fact provide access to jobs for people who are looking for employment.
So that's the question. So how are we balancing those special routes like that with how we also are able to adjust fixed route service to, how are we balancing that? Like, I don't know too far from Epic, and I remember when the road was redone on North University and coming around the town line, it was great because then it was redone, so it really looks like the service, Epic, now the big bus shelter and drop off point and everything of that, we were able to accomplish the fixed route service. I don't know, finding those opportunities like that, I think are key.
How much of the ridership on your paratransit service are people who are potentially able to ride fixed route transit, or physically able to ride your regular bus? Any of them? None of them? All of them? What's the answer?
How would we know? We don't know.
Well, who certifies people to ride the paratransit?
It's paratransit actually handled in Sharon's department.
They go through a testing.
Yeah,
we, OSF, they have to at least go through, Carla, Shannon's assistant will, they have to fill out an application, they qualify, they have a health assessment to make sure that they qualify for the service.
Okay, so some cities, and that's good in the sense that you're not making more people eligible for paratransit than you need to. Now, under ADA, you have to provide complimentary paratransit for passengers who are disabled but unable to use accessible fixed route transit for whatever reason. And some of it, they do conditional eligibility.
Yeah, there's some that maybe might be 6 months, or might just.
So it might be for a period of time, but conditional. Sometimes it's also for certain trips, they can use paratransit, but for other trips they can't, because there are trips that would go to places that do not have an accessible sidewalk, right? They're going to a healthcare facility, but it's half a mile from the bus stop, that kind of thing. There is an issue in different cities that handle this in different ways, and that is how you deal with an aging population. Because the general sort of the social policy around the country is that we want people to age in place. You heard that term?
Yes.
Aging in place. And what that says is, once upon a time, we sort of said, when you're a senior citizen, you got to sell your house, get rid of your car, move to an old folks home. And then we can give you services right there. And that's now the general sort of social policy is that we want people to be able to live in the home they've lived in all their lives. But that becomes problematic if they live in low density areas. That's one reason microtransit has some appeal, is that it bridges the gap between a fixed route service, which is very structured and expensive, and paratransit, which has a lot of rules around it, but it's a way of providing mobility for people in low density areas who may. So it's one of the questions that's really tough. I'm sort of teaching a piece of the planning course we do. The population group that's growing the fastest in our society, that transit does the worst job of attracting to be choice riders, are senior citizens. And the baby boomer generation, the oldest ones are now a little older than me, and the youngest ones are just in their early 60s. So we've been the pig and the python all our lives. Well, that's a group that's going to grow. I don't know what the demographics of Peoria are, but I'll bet they're like everywhere else. and you're going to have a large growing senior population. What are you going to do about it? That's a challenge for your vision for the future. Are you going to try to figure out ways to attract people who are not inclined to ride fixed route transit and are not eligible for paratransit because they're not really disabled? That's an interesting challenge. So that goes to part of your vision, but there will be agencies in Peoria and in Illinois that deal with the aging population, councils on aging, and there'll be some state agency that deals with senior citizen issues. And how do you partner with them? And how do you try to make your service more attractive? And what do they do to help encourage people that are their clients to become your customers? That goes to this innovative, proactive aspect, because one of the things we're going to take a little break in a minute, and then we'll come back and try to wrap this all up today, unless people want to stay much longer. But that sort of finishes what we had planned. But what we want to think about is what role you want this transit agency to play as part of a bigger picture. Are you an instrument of social policy? You certainly can be. That's one of the things that I always was. So when you said, what makes you proud? I would say, I'm proudest of being involved in something that's bigger than just transporting people from A to B, but it's being an instrument of policy in so many different areas. How to get children to school, how to get senior citizens the services they need, how to figure out how to move people who are homeless and have no other means of transportation to shelters, how to get access to medical care for people that have to travel. We built our whole city around private transportation, right? We built the places we shop, the places we go to work, places where people get public services, the government offices, medical care. We built them all with a big parking lot in front because we assumed that that's how Americans travel in 21st century America. That we drive a car and we go to the store, we go to the doctor, we go to the government hall. Well, there are a lot of people who either can't do that, or where it's really in the public interest that you collectively provide transportation instead of having everybody drive in a private car. So that goes to your vision of the future, and that's where you all have to come together and have a shared vision of what staff feels they've been directed to do and given permission to do by the board, and what the board expects them to do and come back to you with plans of action. It sounds like there's at least some openness when we talk about ideas as innovative as microtransit, that you've already done a lot of work on it, and the board, I think, is receptive. So that's wonderful news. And you've done a lot of work on fare collection and all the different options, and you're all going to have to come back together and come to a decision about that. Does that all make sense? All right. Why don't we take about a 10-minute break just so everybody can move around a little bit. And then we'll come back and then I think we can sort of do a wrap up unless there's anything that we haven't talked about that people want to.
Yeah.
But I talked
All I have is this thing.
Nobody is
So
although
I know. So I
management can go away and something else selling customers for years. Hardly any problem that you have with someone else has to solve. Question. Yeah, Jerry just got collective or safety bus. So basically, well, that's really, did they know that? No, I don't care. This is, and I want to get a lot of that. It's not first transit. I mean, it's facilitating it, but it's not managing. Well, you know, first transit is. Now, at one time, the idea was we could talk to electric bus workers, see if we're trying to box I think I was on that one for 1 year too. Alternative fuels. We'll tell everybody. Help yourself and then we'll reconvene. That's the biggest part after this. There's some stuff.
They were like 10. And anyway, he was the only one. Process of elimination. I was just curious.
Right.
Blues, that they had barbecue place out there, and they had the band was right up there, and they played blues, and we ate work there. We got a nice show this
Maybe I should answer it. I was talking to you about, soft shoes, like that. I know, like, can we do something?
All right, well, let's come back in about 2 minutes.
Back in like the baggage operation that's how I, you go in the door and you start digging, seeing that's set the stuff out of the Union in Connecticut, which was a rash.
Yeah. Sometimes you might not figure out everyone's.
I heard that a little bit.
All right, let's, I think, so if everybody gets some popcorn, because that's your gourmet treat for the
Hi,
afternoon.
Holly, thank you for mentioning that. That's
And-
great.
Well, and I'm going to make sure I take some with me, so that won't be a problem.
Okay.
First of all, before we do any wrap up, Desiree, thank you, and whoever else we have to thank. And whoever arranged for this facility, this is a really great venue for this kind
Something
of
for
thing.
Chair Ahart over there, because he lives here in the Heights, so
All right.
we want to support his.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, it's a performing arts center, right? Are we in the performance space right now?
Yes, it's actually up there. I was here a few weeks ago for a thing on Saturday night, and the band plays there, and those full glass doors open.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It's very nice.
Used to be the library.
I could see
It's
that.
also haunted, so.
Who wants it, Chris? Who wants it?
Some old librarian, what they say. And when they were doing construction, doors would fly open and lights would kick on. And so they into big construction, workers quit because of that.
Wow. Well, this is a great location, and the facilities, all the arrangements have been excellent, so thank you. The food has been wonderful. Don't anyone go home without more popcorn. We thought this might go later, but it doesn't have to. We want everybody to leave and energized and not worn out from the day. But what I want to do is circle back to the discussion we had this morning, because one of the things that we handed out, I think when this all began, you got a copy of your current mission statement and vision statement. And every few years, it makes sense to go back and ask yourself, do we still agree with the way we've described our mission? Do we still agree with the way we've described our vision? And unlike the worst mission statement I ever saw was from the transit system in Rochester, New York, that said, we want to carry people where they want to go, when they want to go there, and do it safely. They said, wait a minute, you're not going to take everybody from where they want to go, when they want to go. You're going to take them when it's economically possible to do that, but you cannot serve every trip demand in Rochester. But they wanted to sound like they were very proactive. So it said you provide an environmentally friendly, customer-focused transportation service that connects people to places efficiently and safely. And that's a pretty good mission statement for a transit agency. The word that's not there, that's often in a mission statement, is reliably. And you've already alluded to the fact in several of your comments that that's a challenge, that you put a lot of emphasis on safe, you put a lot of emphasis on being cost effective and efficient. It's certainly economical. You are moving in the direction of environmentally friendly. There's a challenge for reliability, but that's a word that could go in the mission. But I think you understand your mission pretty well. So now what is your vision? We look 7 years into the future. What kind of vision do you have? And what you said was, we're a regional leader in the movement of people, right? Well, leader in the movement of people is part of that flows out of your mission. Nobody else is really leading the movement of people in the Peoria region except you. So that works. Focused on providing a safe environment and reliable transportation. Well, safety, we've said, is always at the top of our priority list. We've got a safety manager who's dedicated to making this as safe a system as possible. Reliability sounds like an issue that you're going to have to focus on, because you've already said the public perceives it to be unreliable, as do your passengers, and as do you yourselves. So you understand that that's a challenge you want to focus on. We are proactive leaders in providing creative solutions by dedicated, highly committed, highly motivated team. And I think one thing that has come out of this discussion, if nothing else, is that teamwork is a challenge that has to be addressed. And it's within the staff, it's between staff and management, it's within the board, and it's between transit system operators and the board of directors. So there is a lot of opportunity there. One of the things we've talked about is what First Transit can help to provide in the way of team building training, and we'll go back and see what we can find that will address that. But it's just the fact that you've acknowledged that as something that needs to be done is really important, because you will have many occasions where it will occur. This is something we need to communicate. This is something I shouldn't do by myself. This is something we should have others involved in. Or this is something where we need the board to give us direction. And then the last part is we are producing delighted customers. I love that term. I don't think you would say today that your customers are delighted. Would you? You would say that your customers appreciate the fact that it's an affordable service. The customers certainly recognize that it's essential, that it's a valuable resource for their necessary for their mobility. But I don't think they'd be delighted. So it's an interesting question as you go forward and you talk about what do we do about being an environmental leader? What do we do about deciding how we're going to finance the system and what technology we're going to use if we collect fares in a way that will make customers delighted, not confused? And what new kinds of innovations can we try that will fulfill that mission? I tried to think of what were a couple of takeaways from the discussion this morning. I would say that the good news is there seems to be, not only within this room, but within the community at large, and certainly among your passengers, that what you do is essential. And that's important. That should be the takeaway that lets you feel satisfaction in what you do, whether you're appointed to the board or whether you work for the transit system. Every employee ought to feel some satisfaction by the fact that what you do is an essential service without which this city couldn't function, and without which large numbers of people who do important essential work couldn't get to work, and people who have to access things just to live their lives wouldn't have the mobility to do it. So you are, and this is sort of the speech I used to make to bus drivers on graduation day. And you'd say, if at the end of the day, you come home from driving a bus and the only thing you remember is the crabby lady who got on the bus this morning and screamed and yelled at you because the bus was late, you're going to hate this job. You're going to come home and say, what a miserable job I had. I got yelled at by the passenger because the bus was late. If you can come home and let that go and say, you know, today I carried 1,000 people who had no other means of transportation, and I took them to their jobs, to their school, to their medical appointments, to buy food, I feel great because I've done a wonderful public service. So I think that's good news that you should all cherish, is the fact that you feel that in your job, and you think the people you serve feel that way too. And that's something you need to reinforce, obviously, with elected officials and community leaders and all the other stakeholders you deal with. Do they fully appreciate what you provide in the way of essential service? Second thing that's good news is it's affordable. It's really cheap, relatively cheap, to ride the bus in Peoria. Now, if you're, and that's a question that the board will have to help you answer, is that the way you want to keep things? You want to raise more revenue, and by raising fares or collecting more, or collecting fares differently, or if you're content with the current level of revenue recovery and maybe with even less, then transit becomes even more affordable. But you don't have people in the community, happily, it's good news, saying the bus is just too expensive. I can't afford to travel. I can't afford to take my kids to the baseball game. I would, but the bus costs too much. So those are two really good things. The challenges, just generally, we said reliability. If people can't expect the bus to be where the schedule says it will be when it's supposed to be there, how can you get them to be comfortable? Now, there are parts of the world where people just know that the bus will eventually come. We'll go sit under a tree and we'll wait till it comes, and because there's only one bus a day and it comes down the dirt road and I'll just wait for it. But that's not how your customers want service in Peoria. They want to expect that if you said the bus will be at this corner at 10 o'clock, that it'll be there within 5 minutes. Right? That's usually the definition of on-time performance. And if it isn't, what does that do to their commitment, their willingness to be a regular transit passenger? More importantly, if it isn't, what can you do about it? And if the problem is you don't have enough drivers, that's certainly part of the problem. There's redouble your efforts to try to do recruitment. And if the problem is the buses are breaking down, that's a separate issue. Maintenance isn't, the buses aren't breaking down because maintenance isn't trying hard enough. But you've got an aging fleet and a facility that really needs to be replaced, and difficulty recruiting all the workers you need. So those are issues that affect reliability. What can you do? What can the team do and talk about to make transit more reliable for the customers? Second challenge was convenience. And that will be a challenge in every transit system, except maybe New York City, where people say, the bus doesn't really go where I want to go, or it doesn't go when I want to go. It doesn't start early enough in the morning, run late enough at night. There are areas within the Peoria region that aren't served at all. That's a planning issue. You're going, who does service planning? Does the MPO do it, or do you do it? You don't have a planning, so there's nobody here who's the director of planning. So is the MPO, who cuts your runs? You do your own run cutting, but they do service planning?
They get information from outside our service area.
Who does data mining for the AVL data? You get AVL data, who mines that? You do, who? Who in this room does that?
Jen does.
Oh, so your supervisors are doing data mining? Wow, okay. Well, you have, thanks to that automatic vehicle location technology, you have information on every bus, every route, every trip, every day, on-time performance at every stop. And there is a way to try to mine that data. It's very time consuming, unless you have, an IT guy who can write the program for you. But to figure out what are the route segments that have the best and worst on-time performance, not route, not the whole trip, but just the route segment. You'll find that there's some places where the 2 time points, the buses never enter. That may help you rewrite the schedule. But,
excuse me.
Yes.
Before you said that, you said about 2 or 3 other acronyms that I was trying to.
Oh, okay. What an AVL is automatic vehicle location. There's a GPS, global positioning satellite technology on every bus that is actually recording where it is in real time. And so you have, if you've been to the dispatcher's office, you can see that, at least I was there yesterday, she had a computer screen that showed all the routes and where the buses were on the route. Now all the data are being collected in a database that tells you where that bus was at every stop along the way. And mining data is a new art in the transit business. But it means, how do I take this mountain of data and figure out from it what information I can use to make better service planning? And so run cutting is the process of deciding how to allocate the work, you have all the routes and schedules. How do you allocate that as efficiently as possible to create work for drivers? So the driver will be one run that says, I start my day at 6 a.m. and I'm going to drive on this route, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that. That's all put together in the most efficient way. But service planning is going to try to say, before you cut the runs, let's figure out what the schedule really should be. So reality and reality matches the schedule, which is a real challenge. But that goes to the question of reliability. Convenience will always be a challenge because people you'll never be able to do what Rochester said they wanted to do, which is make sure that you can carry everybody at any time, anywhere they want to go. That's out of the question. And then the last challenge, last big one that comes out of this is how to make transit attractive to the people who don't use it now. How do you make, there's a wonderful idea for your vision for the future. How do you make transit something that people choose to ride even if they don't have to, as opposed to people who ride transit because they have no other choice? Now that's a market that you absolutely have to serve. That's the essential service that you do. You're providing. We live in a society that was built for private transportation. That's why there's a big parking lot next to the mall and next to the government center and next to the hospital and next to the school, because we expect that that's how people are mostly going to go wherever they need to go in America today. In 20th and 21st century America, they're going to do it in a private car. But not everybody has access to that kind of private transportation, and that's why transit does an essential service for those who have no other means of transportation. But ideally, you will also have people who will say, I choose to use transit because it's environmentally friendly, and I would rather make the effort to ride a bus with an electric power, an electric bus that has zero emissions than drive my car. You will have some people who might say it's more economical to ride the bus. If your car gets 20 miles to the gallon and a gallon of gas costs $5, and I know this is the first time I've seen gas for less than $4. I want to take it back to Connecticut. But okay, I said gas costs $4 a gallon. So I get 20 miles to the gallon, it costs $4. So it's about, you can do the math, it's about 50 cents a mile. Did I do that right? Finance lady? 40 cents a mile. All right, I can ride transit for 50 cents and I can go more than a mile. So it's more economical to ride the bus for 5 miles than it is to drive a car that gets 20 miles to the gallon, but I bought $5 gas. It would be wonderful if there were people who did that. And then other people who just liked the idea of somebody else driving. You know, I didn't actually experience your freeway in the rush hour, but I don't know a single person that ever said, I love driving a car in the bumper-to-bumper traffic at rush hour. I love wondering if the guy in the next lane is going to cut me off. I wonder if, some horrible thing is going to happen. I would much rather ride the bus. I would much rather let somebody else transport me. So wouldn't it be great if in your vision of the future, you have more people in the Peoria area who say, you know what, that sounds like a great alternative. I'm going to choose it at least some of the time. But that's attractiveness as a challenge. And we've talked about technology, and we've talked about revenue, and we've talked about being proactive and innovative. And I want to come back to the badge that Ms. Polk gave everyone in their little bag this morning, because if ever there was a clarion call that wraps up what we've talked about today, it's saying, I'm not going to resist change just because I don't like change. Don't tell me this is how we always did it, and therefore that's how we should always do it. Don't tell me that I have to adapt, because I don't want, people get comfortable in a routine. People get comfortable doing things the same way, always things work? Why should we change? Because now I have to learn something new. I have to talk to people I didn't talk to before. I have to do things that I didn't do before. I have to learn a new skill. Unfortunately, that's what some people in the American workforce have as their attitude. Other people love change. They love to be challenged. They love to learn new things. They love to be learning about whole new programs. And then when you started out, you didn't know anything about microtransit, but now you can say, I not only have learned what it is and studied what it is, now I think I can present it to my board of directors and say, here's an idea that we'd like to try. So overcoming resistance to change is maybe the most important takeaway from our day together here. And the fact that there's a lot of work that now you're going to do. I said first thing when we started out, we are not going to we're not going to answer all the questions. We're not going to rewrite the mission statement. The board is not going to take action on anything, but you're going to start a conversation and hopefully you will keep that going. And to the extent there are things that First Transit can do to help, ask. That's why you hire our company. And ask me, ask Doug, ask Dick. We'll do what we can. Final thoughts. Any reaction? Has this been helpful? I want to particularly address the board, but
That's always the outcome. I just think this has been a great day. I appreciate all of you guys coming and being willing to participate in this. I know you might not have all liked the things I said during the day, but I sort of kind of grow on you as done. But it's real, I know you all do a great job. And I appreciate the efforts that you put forth. Yeah. But we are in the board, we are trying to make things better and different. And we just want y'all to know, and I want you to know how much I appreciate everything you do. And thank you for tolerating us.
Well said. Any other last thoughts from anybody? And yes?
Well, I guess since you're wrapping up, I had two other things I thought we were going to talk about, but we don't have to. I thought one of them was going to be that there were some ideas you were going to share with us about what was going to happen with the old administrative building once the new building's built. And then I thought you had some ideas of what you want to start thinking about as far as the usage of the other space at the transit center.
Perfect.
I didn't catch the first one. What was the first question?
Former
The usage of
administration.
the current building when the new building is built. And then the usage of the other empty space at the transit center.
Not sure about that first one. Yeah.
Wait, what we're going to do with the building once everyone moves into the new building?
Oh, the old building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is that not for discussion yet?
Yeah, we can start discussing that any time. We've had a couple thoughts on that, and reuse is either bring paratransit over there, because currently they pay lease in the space that they're at. And then whether or not we could do maintenance on our facility, they do maintenance at their facility as well. And then, the whole conversation, whether we bring paratransit back under our umbrella without a contractor, which could get kind of expensive depending on how you structure it. So there's some thoughts and ideas I've got on that, and we can still bring them in-house, put them under our people, wouldn't have to pay that extra layer of management, but you'd have to put them in like a subcorp so that they're not, or a lower wage because of paratransit, which some people think there would be some difficulty with that as far as the two organizations being that close to each other. A lot of people do it, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. As far as reuse for the transit center downtown, Shammer did get 2 phone calls in the last week. One was from Head Start of bringing in early daycare services for their organization. And then another one was another daycare provider that are interested. So we're kind of going to entertain both of those options since that's what it was set up for under FTA. If we do go into another plan, we're going to have to get permission from FTA to change the facility. But like Patty and I discussed earlier, that one of those could be making more room for the drivers, and then also a bigger waiting station, since we do have trailways and Peoria Charter coming in. That wouldn't need FTA concurrence because that's what it's already set up for. But Doug's Mini Mart, which Steve wants to call it, that would have to take some FTA concurrence, which I'm not going to be around for that. Yeah.
But that's actually,
What a clever bunch, aren't they?
Doug's Mini Marts, maybe we'll call it something different, but if, just as Chandler was talking about, a food desert area, and if that provides some other, access to, food on the Peoria side of the river. On the textiles or.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we've got some other options if the Head Start things fall apart. We thought Peoria Head Start had changed the management, and now they've got a pretty aggressive person in there. They found some new funding, so I guess we'll probably give them an option first before we, yes ma'am.
This has not been discussed any time in place other than between John and I. A long time ago, maybe 5, 6 years, we were forbidden CityLink to go inside of the actual shopping area of the mall that's on Sterling. And now I understand that there's new management. Could we perhaps review that? Because I live so close to Sterling, I see these people dotting across Sterling because our bus stop is actually on the other side of the street for everybody that's going to be going south, which probably most people are. And I mean, it's a safety hazard for them to do that. So I was just wondering if we could revisit with that new manager, if we could perhaps at least be on if you didn't want us all the way in, just like on the outside somewhere, so that they don't have to cross Sterling to get to the bus. That's it. I promise. I swear.
I'll never hold you to that. That's for sure. Yeah, I think the issue was brought up earlier in the day, and I'm going to kind of wait until the wrap up. But one of the problems with public transit in Peoria is nobody wants it in their backyard. We've tried twice for Northside Transfer Center, and twice we had public hearings, and twice it was very vocal that we don't want you there. We've tried to buy property at the mall, that outbuildings, and they won't even sell it to us. They go, oh, we got another buyer. Yeah, and it's been like that since for years. So it makes it difficult for us, and I think that's part of some of our thing is to create a perception other than what we have to get more public buy-in or support. And I mean, it's not just the general public, it's commercial businesses, it's business leaders, they just don't want us around, because of what we do. And it's sad, but so I think at some point, if we can change that perception, but now we'll talk to them all again, see if we can get back in there. The big reason we got kicked out was because of oily buses. So we were leaving some more. So as long as all we do is run electric buses in there, we'll be good. So, one of the other things I wanted to touch on too was, as you can tell from what staff does every day, I don't have to do anything. I just sit there and, wave and say. But I do want to give the staff a quiz. Some of you are exempt because you weren't here, but do you remember what I told you on one of the first days I was here at the staff meeting? Nobody's raising their hand.
I'm looking at your faces.
It was about public transit and my perception of what I expected, expectations.
I know you.
Yeah, they weren't even paying attention. But anyway, what I told them was, remember, public transit is about operators and buses. Those are our two key things. I could be gone for months and, you know, it's gonna still operate as long as you got operators and buses. We also need passengers too. But your job is to make sure you backfill those positions to make their jobs easier so that we do keep the passengers, you know, make it easier for them to get on our buses, make it easier for the operators, make sure we have the buses. But, you know, that was the whole key to what we do is to backfill that job. So just a reminder, I've been here almost 6 years now, so that's a record for me too. Yeah, so 4 years have been it. Now I'm almost 6. So. Anything else from the board?
This is kind of a little thing about having all the shelters, all the plates and glass replaced, because there's a lot of empty slots that rain can do. So whatever you guys can do to make that happen. I know, but might have to replace them no matter what.
One example is Lexington Hills, we put a brand new pad, double shelf, and set up lines, it lasts one night.
Oh, my.
One night.
How many times have you replaced that, Kenny? Twice, 3 times?
It is twice, and the bottom of it was, no, just.
That's not one panel, it's all of them.
All hands, yeah. So it was, no, it's just, yeah.
Quarter north and the third, they love breaking those out, you know, here's the hill, they love breaking those out. So we are looking at different products besides glass or plexiglass, but something that's more hardy. That makes it clear, but it doesn't look like someone put some wax paper over the windows after the yellow. Plexiglass yellows.
Yeah.
But you quite plexiglass too, though, you shot it.
Oh, man. That's what every side is.
We don't have a good answer for that yet.
Yeah. Thanks for trying.
You know, we try, we love it, wish we make action, but they terrible. And they're not handled.
All right, well, thank you. Appreciate all your input, and it's been really helpful for staff and myself to get to meet with you like this, so appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's all right, very much.
Thank you. No, I just want you to look at it, because I'm gonna get new names next week.
A or B.
Which one, left or right? Okay. Left?
Yeah. Safe travels going back.
Yeah. You're very welcome. It's great to meet you.